Stay in school, kids, because you ain't learning anything here. Welcome to WatchMojo.com, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 video games that butchered history. Before we begin, we publish new videos every day, so be sure to subscribe for more great content. While games can often be a great source of new knowledge, with many trying to incorporate real-world events into their plots and narratives, complete historical accuracy is not very common. Our list looks at titles that defy history either by bending or outright changing historical facts to better fit their game's world. Number 10, Shadow of Rome.
The cremation of the assassinated Julius Caesar took place in the Foro Romano.
The intrigue surrounding Caesar's assassination is one that's kept people occupied for centuries. But despite what many may think, this was actually not a top-secret assassination that gripped the city of Rome in an investigation.
Et tu, Brute?
The assailants were well known and literally nobody tried to hide it. Hell, Brutus issued new coins celebrating the events. Instead of the rather bland reality, though, Shadow of Rome gives us a murder mystery where the assassination is pinned on someone innocent, who then requires gamers to uncover the truth and clear his name. Number 9, Medal of Honor Underground. World War II is a fantastic setting for many games and many different genres. There were sieges, open warfare, tank warfare, and of course, occupation and liberation. While this title takes the latter approach of focusing on the occupation of France, it trips up in so many ways. Like, Germany didn't actually occupy the city of Paris until June of 1940, so why is the resistance in the capital set in May? And do you remember when the French soldiers fought Nazis equipped in suits of medieval armor and swords? No? You don't remember that? Alright, that's because it never happened. Number 8, Rogue Warrior.
I heard the commies cost you 2 good men, Commander. I'm sorry.
We can all agree that this game is definitely awful, but aside from that, it's also incredibly stupid. Marcinko is based on a real-life US Navy SEAL, and while the game uses the title of his real autobiography, it manages to ignore everything that's inside of it. Instead, the game insists on an imaginary North Korean ballistic missile threat in 1986, which admittedly is more suited for 2018. Anyway, that should tell you all you really need to know about the effort that went into this one. What's worse are Mickey Rourke's pop culture references about movies that would only come out about 14 years after the date of the game.
Minimum footprint, maximum impact. SOP for assholes like me.
Number 7, Gun. Setting your game in any historical setting can lead to great narrative experiences, but if you're not careful, that illusion can come crashing down. Case in point is this Wild West themed title that manages to get so many things wrong. For example, why is Texas Hold'em being played in the saloons when it was only invented quite a long time later? And why does this game infer that the Civil War ended in 1870? Alright, admittedly these might not be game-breaking mistakes, but they really add up and completely ruin a lot of the immersion.
Got a chance.
Number 6, Nioh. I don't know how to break it to you, but there weren't actually that many demons in feudal Japan. While the game does make a good enough effort at incorporating real historical figures like Tokugawa Ieyasu into the plot, there's a lot of head-scratching decisions here. First of all, William Adams wasn't Irish, but he was British and he had black hair, not blonde hair. He was also never an esteemed fighter, but he was awarded the rank of samurai for being an expert navigator. Secondly, Edward Kelly died before Adams ever arrived in Japan. These two guys are basically who the whole plot revolves around. So if you're going to twist history into a game that already has demons, then why not just make a few new characters for your protagonist and antagonist?
Sorry. This spirit's part of my collection now.
Number 5, Assassin's Creed series. Some of the series' inaccuracies include the original assassins being portrayed as stealthy killers instead of murderers who just publicly executed and terrorized people, and the Knights Templar being an ever-present organization, despite only really existing for like 200 years. Whether it's pirates engaging in naval combat and wrecking their ships instead of intimidating their rivals, or not realizing that child labor in Britain in the 1880s was well regulated without the need of assassins, you'll be constantly reminded that while the environments are polished to a high degree of accuracy, the rest just isn't. Number 4, L.A. Noire.
Is it real? No.
While this crime drama gets a lot of stuff right, there's still a lot of overlooked errors too. For instance, in Jessica's handbag, there's a letter with a zip code. when this format wouldn't exist until 1963. Brake lights and turn signals are also on every car, despite not being widespread until the 1950s. And the game has a strange fascination with Nixon. Sure, he was elected to Congress just before the events of the game, but there's flyers all around the city in areas that wouldn't have been able to vote for him.
Be calling Richard Nixon a crook next.
And on top of that, why would McKelty make a passing reference to him being a crook? It's funny, sure, but it's also 30 years out of place.
My husband's a movie producer. This has something to do with his new picture.
Number 3, Battlefield 1. You'd think with so many shooters on the market, DICE would leap at the chance to use relatively realistic, period-specific weapons to differentiate themselves. But nah, that's not the case. You just get a lot of guns that kinda hurt the accuracy of the game. Infantry soldiers in the 1910s were mostly just equipped with bolt-action rifles, not the widespread automatic firearms that populate this title, which, when you think of it, probably weren't given to standard infantry before after World War II. And while the attire for regionally specific soldiers, like those in the Middle East, are very good recreations, they're also equipped with European-style sabers rather than scimitars they're most known for using, so that's wrong too. Number 2, Genji, Days of the Blade. Sony will probably never live it down, but it's worth remembering. E3 2006 had this game giant parading their new title that apparently accurately detailed the historical battles that took place in ancient Japan. Cool, right? Well, no, because immediately after that statement, they fight a giant enemy crab. Quite literally.
The stages of the game will also be based on famous battles which actually took place in ancient Japan. So here's this giant enemy crab.
We're sure that's an anatomically accurate giant enemy crab, but we don't think that ever happened in feudal Japan. We also don't think they had magic lightning attacks, despite what the game would have you believe. The moral of the story, kids, is if you're gonna do something, go all the way. Half-assing it makes you look kinda bad. Number 1, Dantes Inferno.
How can you not forgive yourself?
In case you weren't aware, this game is indeed based on a real poem, the Divine Comedy, written by Dante himself. Well, that's a good start, but given this information, you can probably guess that Dante was not a warrior that struck down Lucifer after his involvement in the Crusades. He was a poet. He wrote poems. Even if you wanted to ignore this fact and suspend your disbelief, how is it possible for Dante to have participated in the Third Crusade when he wasn't even alive for that conflict? He wrote the Divine Comedy like 100 years after the war. That's just bad timing, dudes.
Don't do it.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.